Hello, my friends. I am here to take you through my quarter two pain review. Woo! That actually felt kind of hard to say. I don't know why. The brain is foggy. Actually, we do know why. It is always the same reason. The brain is full of sludge and quicksand. Yeah, 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 yeah. Anyway, hi, welcome. This video is later than I wanted it to be, but there's been a lot going on. So, this journal is the one that I was using for the first half of 2025. I have now completed it and moved into a new notebook for the back half of the year. And this is a little showing of what my notebooks look like when they are completely full. So, I have been doing this routine of trimming the edges of the pages on my daily notes so that the only pieces of paper that actually stick all the way forward are my quarterly open and close pages that have my calendars on them, as well as the cover pages for each individual month. And then I put a piece of gold metallic or a different color metallic washi tape on the ends so that they are bright and shining and just a little bit like thicker and sturdier. And I can find them wherever I am. So when I'm looking at this, I can easily see the space that each month took up, and I can easily flip through to find the beginning of every single month, which is where I keep all of my pain tracking charts for the month. So, since we're looking at quarter two, that is the months of April, May, and June, and let's just jump right in, shall we? So, as you can see, we're going back to April. I've got that taped edge here that you can see, and then my quarterly pages and my calendars are the pieces of paper right in front of it. And then I always trim the starting edges of my pain charts. Pardon. We're getting over being sick. The voice is husky. We are 1940s jazz singers with emphysema. What are we saying? Yes, we like to trim. My paint chart pages are always trimmed a little bit closer in. I just like to have that so that I can always easily find them. Anytime I take this, it's like the pages fall perfectly there. So let's take a look at April. This is a practice that I've been starting this year of reviewing each of my quarterly pain charts as a way to personally self-reflect on the last 3 months of just how my pain has been, particularly as someone who is living with chronic pain, living with chronic illness, and managing daily levels of pain over long periods of time. It is helpful for me to be able to go back and see what a particular month looked like at a glance. This is also helpful for when I go to my doctors and I'm like, here's the thing, my brain is full of quicksand mush, so I'm bringing you the literal data that I captured while it was happening because it's hard to be able to recall what was going on April 10th, for example, in August. And this is the way that I can actually keep track of that. So, not only is this a way of reflection, a way of data capturing so that I can share it with medical professionals, I was also hoping that it could be interesting question mark and or informative for you if you are someone who lives with chronic conditions as well and you're curious about bullet journaling for chronic pain. That's kind of the whole thing I'm doing here. If you're curious about what tracking something like this, symptom tracking, might look like for you, here's an example of what I do, and maybe it's helpful. We'll see. All right, let's stop doing exposition and just actually get into it. So here's April. My pain charts have reached what I'm going to call a saturation point in terms of like the design. I have figured out what works for me. I like to have my Mankoski pain scale for chronic pain listed out over here and having a little bit of humorous art. And currently we are staying strong with our "this is fine" dog on fire comic. So this is like a singular sticker that I made for myself in Canva, where I split up the comic panels, stuck in the pain scale for the chronic pain numbers of 0 through 10, 0 being pain 3, 10 being unconscious, pain makes you pass out. Like, it is so bad that you are not able to be a human. And this is just a helpful tool for the days when I'm like, my brain is so foggy because of how riddled with discomfort I am. I need to look at these definitions, and these were developed by Andrea Mankoski. Oh my God, like approaching 25, 30 years ago. I think it was like maybe 1998-ish that she originally developed this chart for herself as a way to explain to her family, friends, and doctors like what her chronic pain was doing. And I think she's updated it a couple of times, the latest being maybe around 2002-ish. You can Google it, you can find out more about that. But I took her pain number descriptors and typed them out in this little chart to create the sticker for myself. So I just print out a sticker, boom, stick it in there. And then the only thing I am actually changing from month to month is whether or not I am tracking the same exact symptoms. So in April, if you look from the 1st through the 30th, this is the trend line that is kind of created by the summation of every single day of how bad did my pain get on any individual day. So on April 1st, we were at a 6, and by the time I had already put this in here, it was raising toward a 7, so I just marked that by putting a little arrow. Let me zoom you in a little bit so you can actually see. There we are. I marked that by putting an arrow, and then, yeah, every other day I've got... April was rough, actually. April was hard. This is the month where I had 2 different theater gigs out in California. So I started the month actually in the still snowy mountains of the area around Lake Tahoe. And it was beautiful and it was wonderful and it was amazing. However, we were dealing with a lot of bodily pain because the schedule was grueling. And then even after I got home, the pain was just like, holy fuck. Not doing well. I've mentioned before that I am usually never below a 5 on the pain scale. It's been a very long time since I've been below a 5 in terms of my daily existence. So to put that in Andrea Mankoski's terminology, a 5 is your pain cannot be ignored for more than 30 minutes. So it's present enough that you can only go for maybe half an hour, like able to dive into some kind of activity to distract yourself. But by the time that half hour is up, you are reminded, your body is going, ow, this hurts, something is not right. And a 4 can be ignored if you are really involved in your work but still distracting. And usually we're not even hitting 4. we are sitting at 5 and above. And honestly, this last quarter we've been averaging 7s. But it looks like April we were averaging 8s. So this is the month also that toward the end of it, I had 2 surgical procedures where some handy dandy super long needles were put into my spine. I had what's called a lumbar medial branch block, which they did to both sides of my lower back. So they did them on 2 separate days. They separated them out by about 10 days or so. and we did the first one on the 16th and the second one on the 28th, and holy cannoli, the week in between was insane. Doing a procedure like this where the goal of both of them is to hopefully block the nerve bundles in your lower back to inform whether or not an actual nerve ablation where they go in and like burn your nerves and like cut the connection between certain nerve centers in your body, because all they are doing is relaying pain, and we can't live like that. Right? So doing a procedure like this, once you've done both of them, that is where you can start to see like, okay, this is either lowering my daily level experience of pain or not. But I have found, for me, doing one of them and waiting for that second one, the way my body is responding, the way my nerve system is responding to just that first one, it's like, like going absolutely haywire. The pain was wild. We had this one day on the 23rd down here at a 6, but holy cannoli, we got all the way up to a 10, which is rare for me to actually put down a 10, because we're thinking on like an exponential experience of pain, right? Like, as much as I can go by every single one of these descriptions over here in the pain description chart, it's difficult to imagine the 10 being like the worst possible pain you have ever felt, and it's so bad it's actually making it impossible for you to stay conscious. This is difficult for me to write down, mostly because, and I think Andrea Mankoski would agree, when you have experienced just so much physical pain in your life over and over and over again, you get used to a certain baseline level of pain, which is why it's like, oh, if I'm down at a 6, I consider that actually to be a good day for me. If we're reaching 8 though, that's like, I gotta cancel plans. I gotta go lay down in the fetal position. This is not well. Like, the space between a 6, a 7, and an 8 is actually quite large in terms of my lived experience of what I would categorize them as, of how much pain is making me bump that number up to a 7 or bump that number up to an 8 or a 9. And it is rare that I put a 10, because it's like, well, I mean, I've had surgeries and I've stayed in the hospital overnight and I've had really insane, intense, painful experiences in my life. So it's like, yeah, I feel really, really, really bad and it's making consciousness difficult, but is it the worst I've ever felt? This is something that, if you are someone who deals with chronic pain, you will be familiar with. Like, being able to capture the experience of the worst pain we've ever felt. It's like, I'm not saying this number out of nowhere, is essentially what I'm trying to say. Like, we are so attuned to feeling bad all of the time that getting to the point where it's like, do we need to go to the emergency room? It's kind of a hard question to answer. Like, it takes a lot. It takes a whole hell of a lot for me to get to a place where I'm going to put this number down. A lot more than an able-bodied person who does not live with chronic pain on a day-to-day basis. They might say a 10 because they have broken a bone and maybe they're not unconscious, but it's the worst pain they've ever felt. And that might be like, I might put that as a 7 or an 8, depending on how I'm doing that day and what's going on with the rest of the nerve pain in my body. Anyway, we're getting a little in the weeds, but just wanted to say that the space in between these two surgical procedures was wild. And I've had similar procedures done in the past where needles have been put into different areas of my spine for the purpose of trying to ultimately lower the amount of pain that I'm experiencing. But putting needles in your spine can, when you are dealing with neuromuscular issues, can aggravate those issues. So my nerves and my muscles were very unhappy for the space in between these two. All right, next up, I've got my mood, I've got my sleep. I was doing pretty okay, particularly on the weeks where I was in California doing my theater gigs. But um, on these latter days, we even got to the point after that second surgical procedure where I didn't even collect any data because I was laid up in bed trying to recover from, like, oh god, I just had needles in my spine. So, as you can see, the sleep scale, we go from woohoo to yeah, today's pretty good to meh to oh god, why to death. Did we have any death? We did! We had a few nights of sleep that were absolutely terrible. That makes sense that this day of, in brackets, dies, period, ends up being categorized as a 9. That makes sense to me. So once we've got the mood and the sleep, we've got fatigue. Most days we had high levels of fatigue with a few days of actually doing well. This is interesting. The space in between my two surgical procedures, even though the pain levels were really high, I actually had a little bit more energy. So, like, we're seeing, okay, I'm not quite as on the floor with exhaustion. Maybe this is actually doing something, even though it's still aggravating other pain centers in my body. The brain fog, oh yeah, in between those two surgical procedures, very high the whole time. And when I was on my gigs, because I was using my brain constantly, and for something that I love, where I'm like teaching theater and getting to perform and hang out with cool small humans, my brain fog was a little bit less because I was actually like doing a thing that I love and engaging with needing to practice these skills that I have honed over years and years and years. Let's see, joint pain. Joint pain was pretty high at the beginning of the month, and then literally on the day of that first LMBB, drops down to mid and stays there for pretty much the rest of the month. That's wild. Looking at stuff like this, that's like, okay, clearly that helped out with some stuff. Let's see, back and pelvis, high. And then I started putting red boxes around things that were like, it's high, but it's like worse than my typical high. Which, how do you, if I'm always at high pain on a scale of low, mid, high, and then I have super high, what the heck? Like, do I need to change my scale? What's going on? And then 2 days of mid after that first medial branch block. Let's see, the nerve lightening down here, mostly high with a few days of lower. So, and by lower I mean mid, where, as you can see, we're never really putting low on this scale, unfortunately. Now, down here, we've got the urinary pain difficulty. That's pretty much every single day. Every day that I was tracking regularly, you can see the empty boxes are spaces where I missed out on tracking things. There is urinary pain every single day because the endometriosis has caused so much nerve pain that the bladder is mad all of the time. So, similar with the bowel pain and difficulty, my intestines have also been wrecked ever since my last surgery at the end of 2020. Although we were doing okay for this like early part of April. Nausea, a little bit related to the bowel pain, makes sense. Limb numbness, that's something I've been tracking this last quarter. I'm waking up with my left arm like fully dead, pins and needles pretty much every day, and then having issues throughout the day where my hands are just going numb. I don't know what's happening with that. We've got an angry nerve system, clearly. The Vecna cramps, oh, they stayed away for the first half of the month, but then they showed up in force, on these really bad days. I'm not even showing you. These are the days that they were really bad, and that makes sense to me here because this first selection of needles in the spine, woo, that week was rough because my lower back and my pelvis were like, what have you done to us? Okay, moving on. We had vertigo only a few times. That's great. Arrhythmia showing up kind of sporadically, a little bit less in the back half of the month. Feelings of high anxiety, high depression showing up a little bit sporadically as well, but not as much in the very last week. We love that. Pelvic seizing. Oh yeah, so we've got the correlation between the pelvic seizing, the vecna cramps, which are if you've seen the most recent um, seasons of Stranger Things, the like vecna, spoiler alert, the like bodies lifting up into the air and the way that their bodies are like bending and breaking. That's what's happening to my muscles, where it feels like they are fully lifting up off of the bone. Ha 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 ha. So it makes sense that a lot of this is happening on the same days. We've got red lines all the way up. Yep, and that's the day that I called the 10. So neck pain also happening kind of the entire time. And then I covered up this bottom part because you don't need to know about the correlation to sex and intimacy, but you can probably make assumptions that like it was not happening on this day for sure. So I don't know that I meant to get this in the weeds for just April, but here we go. That's what we're tracking. Now I've got all of my pages for the actual month filled out. I cut off just that last little bit, basically where that first row of dots starts. I just trim those down. And then, handy dandy, this next gold edged page is the May cover page. Perfect. And we're here and ready to look at this one. Okay, this is where shit gets wild. So I have now just had at the end of April those 2 lumbar medial branch block procedures, and the initial recovery was rough. There were a few days here in that first week following where I was just not taking notes of things, and that is okay. This is a non-linear process. We are just going day by day, moment by moment. This was also a week that I was out of town in California again for another theater gig. But can we just take a friggin' moment to look at this? My first 5 in quite a while. Wow. We had a couple 6s and then a 5. And even though sleep was not the best for these weeks, I was in a decent mood and feeling pretty good. And then overall, we went from average of 8 with getting all the way up to a 9 and a 10 in April to average of 7s and only 2 8s. This is like proof to me that we are making like inches worth of progress in pain management, which is really what pain management is about. It's not about how do we go from experiencing 9s and 10s every single day to all of a sudden being pain-free. That is unfortunately not possible as far as I understand from doctors and research and my lived experience. But can we take these tiny little baby steps, these little incremental pushes of like trying something new, trying something different, and can we lower the pain threshold so that on average we're feeling a little bit less? We are in a better mood. The sleep is improving, all of that. This is really showing me that this procedure helped. And this procedure was the first of a round of several before their like diagnostic tests before they actually go in and like do any of the nerve ablation that I mentioned earlier. So this is showing me that, hey, this is helpful. My fatigue was lower more this month than it was the last month. My brain fog, I also had a correlation with lower fatigue, my brain fog also feeling lower, and then this, my joint pain, holy cannoli. We had mid all the way up through until the 21st and 22nd and the end of May, and that also correlates with my low back pain for the first time ever. Look at this. My lower back was mid, and I even had one day on May 6th, the day that I put that I had a 5, my low back pain was low. Are you kidding? Holy cow. Like this is why I do this, so I can actually figure out what's going on in the literal lived experience data of it all. Oh my gosh. This first 2 weeks after this procedure was the first time I have not felt like my spine was broken in the middle of it for the first time in years. Honestly, for most of my life, I've had very intensive spine pain since since I was single digits, since I can remember. So this is wild to me. This is showing me that, like, okay, we did something. Now, it was just a diagnostic, so it was gonna wear off, but man, for these 2 weeks, I kind of felt like I could fly, which is amazing. Now, toward the end of May, we did get back up into the higher numbers, but as evidenced by the numbers up here, the worst it got was an 8, and in April, the worst it got was a 10, so I call that a big win for sure. We've also got, let's see, yep, the pelvis was lower, the nerve lightening, I haven't put low for nerve lightening in a very long time. That's also here. And then, yeah, I'm missing some days down here, but in general, wow, that really helped. Even having my pelvic pain and the nerve lightening be low, I wasn't experiencing the urinary pain. See, because that's the thing about your nerves, is they go all through your body, and if you affect one system, other systems get affected because they connect to each other. So this is the hope. Yeah, in these low pain days, I also wasn't dealing with the pelvic seizing, the like vecna cramps, that, as I call them. This is just phenomenal. I was not dealing with anxiety and depression because we were actually feeling good. Are you kidding me? You mean when I feel good, I don't want the world to end? Holy cow. So May was kind of a banger. We do get to the end where, as this medial branch block is starting to wear off, things are starting to go back up high, but we're averaging at a 7 rather than averaging at an 8 and topping out at a literal 10. So let's move on from May. You can see over here I've got all my pages for May, and then the very next long gold tape edged page, boom, brings us over to June. Okay, let's see how June is doing. All in all, still averaging at the 7, but I did have a lot more 8s than May, and we did get all the way up to a 9. As you can see, yep, I had that one glorious 5 and a couple 6s, and then beginning of June I had 2 6s, and then for the rest of the month we were living in the 7s with a few days that were worse than that. This really shows me that that procedure in particular was actually doing what it was supposed to be doing, and that's honestly the whole point. That's why we're doing this. It's amazing. Okay, anything notable? Yep, these few days where I had the 9 around June 25th, yeah, this is where I've got like, oh my God, things are bad, things are not doing well. I've got the red little squares around those boxes. Sleep. Oh, yep. we put the absolutely dead face, and then my mood was, oh God, why? That makes sense. If we're going all the way up to a 9, that makes sense to me. So June was kind of a wild month in the middle here, where my mood is like actually doing pretty well, which is really nice, even though my sleep is not doing so great. This was when I went on a tour to friends. I got to travel to see a handful of different friends. I went to 3 different locations. A very good friend of mine just had her first small human brand new hell spawn that I needed to go see as Auntie M. Excuse me, sir, why is the angry truck going by? How dare you? Yeah, so we had to go do some I took the opportunity to stop in Austin, see some friends, then travel over to Orlando, see some friends, travel a few hours away from that, see some friends, and then come back. It was a really lovely time and experience. However, at the same time that that was happening, and I was having terrible sleep because I was sleeping like on mattresses on the floor, which like is fine, but my body was a little angry about it. My dog Valor, the same one who, if you've been catching up with these plan with me, has just recently had her second surgery in a year for her back leg, her second TPLO surgery. So she's now bionic in both back legs. She is developed diabetes, so she's now insulin dependent, and that happened while I was gone. And my partner was having to deal with learning all about that and figuring out how to use syringes to give insulin to a dog twice a day without me. So I came home and was like, oh my God. And it's very possible that that stress also linked up with this very high pain day, because the end of the month is when I came back home. So when we talk about pain, it is a biopsychosocial experience. Bio meaning biology. There are literal medical biological things going on in your body that are causing the pain. Psycho meaning they are affecting your mental health, and then how you are living your life can also affect your mental health and potentially exacerbate your pain, such as you are never leaving the house, you're never seeing friends, and therefore anxiety and depression are likely to be higher. And then social meaning, do you have community, and do you have support systems, and do you have people who can come over and cheer you up, and on a really shit day when you are living in these high numbers, can they come over and watch a movie with you, and you can just like have a few hours of distraction and have that gorgeous synchronicity exist where you are engaging with people you love, and like a little bit of energy in life comes back into your body. So the experience of the biopsychosocial is a whole thing. It's something I'm doing a lot of personal research on so that I can address these 3 areas of my life, and this is one way that I can track those things. So, let's see. Yep. Oh, beginning of June, I had one day for my joint pain and my lower back pain that were in the mid, and then we are back to high for the entirety of the month, which is how it's been since. I haven't been able to go back and have my second lumbar medial branch block yet, but that is on the calendar to get scheduled, hopefully before the end of this current quarter, she says, as she's almost as she's past the middle of it. Oh my God. Let's see, anything other interesting? Yep, all of that urinary pain is back. The bowel pain, very has been really annoying and intensive. The nausea, not as bad for June. It's been kind of insane for July and August, but limb numbness, yep, she's back. Pelvic seizing, yep, oh my God, how dare you. My death stars, which is when my my ovaries feel like they're imploding, as if a small fighter ship has flown in through the duct system and they are imploding from the inside out. So that's what that feels like. Migraines, a little more migraine-y here in June. We don't love that. The vertigo, really intense at the beginning of June. Don't know why, but it also coincided with my heart arrhythmia going wild. Ooh, here's something interesting. Heart arrhythmia going wild. Oops, I'm reading the wrong one. Anxiety and depression. Okay, only one thing of vertigo. Let me zoom in so you can actually see what I'm talking about. Okay, yeah, I was misreading the line. Migraine. No, I wasn't. I was not misreading the line. I'm dumb. I'm a dum-dum. Yeah, I've got anxiety and depression down here, and it looks like, based on what I can see, because I have the tape covering the intimacy portion, we had some maybe right before I left for my trip, and then right when I came back from my trip, which makes sense, because this for sure makes sense with the stress over my sweet baby child dealing with this new diagnosis and my partner having to take care of it all by themselves. That's insane. But yeah, the arrhythmia and the vertigo coinciding and the migraine coinciding, it makes sense, right? One system is angry, other systems are going to be angry by just the literal fact that they are connected in one body. Your body is one container. Okay, so that was quarter two. That was April, May, and June pain. And that's how I track things. And I've got these lovely, handy dandy, what do you call them? Little like the tape edges so that I can always go back and find very easily whatever I need to find. And yeah, that is quarter two in review. Bum bum. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening to the ramblings. If you did, let me know if this was interesting and or surprising and or informative, and especially if you are someone who is living with chronic conditions, girl, let me know. Let me know. Are you doing any kind of symptom tracking? Does it look like this? What does yours look like? What are you doing for yourself? And have you found it helpful or not? What is not working for you as well? Because it's always kind of a process of like month to month doing these reviews of like, is it helpful to review my neck pain? If it's showing up literally every single day, can I reclaim one of these lines by stopping tracking that, since I know that it's just part of the back and the insanity of everything else? Yeah, let me know what you're working on, and I hope that your pain levels are below a 5, dear friends. Whether you are on the chronic pain scale or a normie, able-bodied, you don't live your life like this pain scale. I hope all of you 5 or below. And with that, I will see you next time. Take very good care of yourselves, dear friends, and as always, have a magical day.